Some discoveries don't explode into your life like a bomb. They slide in quiet and slow, like a chill under the door on a winter morning. You don't even notice at first. But then you look up, and suddenly you're freezing. For me, it started with something almost laughably mundane. A bracelet. It was a Saturday afternoon in May, one of those perfect days that hovered just above 70 degrees, with the kind of breeze that made the trees whisper to each other. I'd just finished trimming the hedge out front, wiping sweat off my brow with a rag that probably needed to be burned instead of washed. When I walked into the kitchen for some water, the air conditioning brushed cool relief over my skin. Our babysitter, Lila, was sitting at the counter with a glass of lemonade, chatting casually with my wife, Marin. They both looked up when I entered. Marin gave me that familiar half-smile, the one that said she appreciated me but was mostly distracted, and Lila turned to me with a cheerful wave. "Thanks again for letting me borrow this," Lila said, lifting her wrist. A silver bracelet gleamed under the kitchen lights, dainty, minimalist, with 3 small charms. "It's really cute. Super thoughtful of you." I blinked. My mouth went dry before I even took a sip of water, because I didn't give her that bracelet. And Marin had never mentioned it to me. Marin glanced up briefly, then nodded as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Of course. I figured it matched that top you wore last weekend." Lila beamed, finished her lemonade, and headed out the door with a breezy "See you Monday," leaving behind nothing but the faintest trace of vanilla-scented body spray. I stood there, still holding the rag in one hand and the glass of water in the other, pretending to sip while my mind rewound and replayed that moment. The bracelet, the thanks, the gift Marin never told me about. It should have meant nothing. Marin was generous, especially with Lila, who had become something like a family fixture since she started watching our daughter a year ago. Lila was 21, just out of college, and trying to save up for grad school. She was kind, bright, and the kids adored her. Marin saw a younger version of herself in her. That's what she always said. Still, a gift? A bracelet? Without mentioning it? Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but in our marriage, we shared these little things. I'd always told Marin when I gave someone a gift, even something small, like coffee for a coworker. It wasn't about control, it was about transparency. So why hadn't she said anything? Later that night, after dinner and bedtime stories, I pretended to be watching a rerun of some detective show, but really, my mind was elsewhere. That bracelet hadn't come from Lila's usual collection. I remembered because she once joked about being allergic to cheap metal. "Turns my wrist green," she'd said. The one she wore today was not cheap. It looked real, subtle, classy, familiar, even. I started paying more attention. Monday came, and Marin worked late. I got home before her and found Lila in the kitchen with our daughter, Ellie, who was coloring dinosaurs at the table. Lila had her sleeves rolled up, the bracelet glinting on her wrist. I cleared my throat. "Nice bracelet." She looked up, smiling. "Still love it." I nodded. Marin picked it out. Lila tilted her head. "Yeah, I thought you knew." I smiled, or tried to, and turned to help Ellie find a red crayon. But inside, something began to shift. That night, once Marin got home and fell asleep next to me, I lay staring at the ceiling. I thought about that bracelet, about how Marin had glanced at it so casually, like it meant nothing. And maybe it did, but maybe it didn't. And then I started to remember all the small things. A month ago, Marin had taken a sudden girls' weekend that was never mentioned again. The week before that, she was unusually distant, locking her phone more than usual. Lila had been around a lot more lately, sometimes even on days we hadn't scheduled her. I chalked it up to Marin's increasing work hours. But now, 1,000 little fragments were rearranging themselves into a pattern I hadn't seen before. I didn't sleep that night. By Tuesday, I was watching them. Watching Lila when she didn't know I was home early. Watching Marin when she stepped out to run errands for 2 hours. Watching their texts, what little I could see over Marin's shoulder, fly by with emojis and vague laughter. It got under my skin, and I did something I'm not proud of. I installed a camera in the living room. Just a small one. Hidden inside a bookshelf, camouflaged among dusty cookbooks and untouched photo albums. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, that I was being paranoid, and this would prove it. That was Wednesday. Thursday morning, I reviewed the footage from the night before. Marin had gone to yoga. I'd taken Ellie to bed. Lila had stayed late, saying she had paperwork to finish for her teaching certification. I left her in the living room, grading papers on the coffee table. What I saw made my blood run cold. The footage showed Lila lounging on the couch, typing on her laptop. About 15 minutes after I left the room, she stood, walked to the bookshelf, my bookshelf, and reached into the bottom row behind a set of children's encyclopedias. She pulled out a wine bottle and a single glass. Then she poured herself a drink, sipped, and pulled something else out. A small velvet box. She opened it slowly, reverently. Inside, though the camera angle wasn't great, I could just make out something that sparkled. Another piece of jewelry? She smiled to herself, then closed the box, slid it back behind the books, and resumed typing like nothing had happened. I sat there, frozen. That box wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before, but Lila had. She knew exactly where it was. When Marin got home an hour later, sweaty and smiling, she gave Lila a hug that lingered just a little too long. Their heads tilted together as they whispered something I couldn't hear. I didn't sleep that night either. By Friday, I was unraveling. I searched the bookshelf during lunch. The box was gone. Every interaction between Marin and Lila now played back in my mind on loop. The touches, the long looks, the weekend trips that didn't quite add up. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was turning shadows into monsters. But the air in our house felt charged, like before a storm. Like truth was waiting just beneath the surface. That evening, while Ellie was drawing spaceships and Marin was out buying groceries, Lila stayed behind to help me clean up. We stood in the kitchen together, the silence stretched taut between us. "Hey," I said, "that bracelet looks new again." Lila smiled faintly, eyes flicking to mine. "Some things stay shiny," she said. Then she turned and walked down the hall, into our bedroom, without knocking, and shut the door. I followed 10 seconds later, heart pounding. But when I pushed the door open, the room was empty, and the closet was open. Inside, a single hanger swung gently side to side. Marin's red coat was missing, the one she only wore on special occasions. And on the floor, nestled against the baseboard, was the velvet box. Open, empty. I didn't touch the box. I stared at it. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat, and I listened. The house was quiet except for the faint scratch of Ellie's crayons against paper in the next room. Lila hadn't left through the hallway. I would have heard the creak of the hardwood under her boots. No sound from the front door either, which left one possibility. I stepped back into the hallway and moved quickly, quietly, toward the side door near the laundry room. It was slightly ajar. Outside, the sky had just dipped into twilight. The hedge cast long shadows across the lawn, and the air smelled faintly of lavender and wet grass. I saw Lila's figure slipping down the driveway, hugging something in her arms, Marin's red coat. She didn't turn around, didn't look back once, just kept walking, brisk and light, like someone carrying a secret too hot to hold. I didn't call after her. I just stood there, letting the evening breeze crawl down the collar of my shirt. The velvet box sat behind me, open like a wound, and Lila walked away with something I couldn't name. Later that night, after Ellie was asleep and Marin returned from her grocery run, a single reusable bag with nothing but milk, apples, and 2 candles, I brought it up. Lila left her bracelet here, I said casually, watching her face. Marin looked up from where she was slicing an apple, her hands pausing mid-cut. Did she? I didn't see it. She was wearing your red coat, I added. That got her attention. The coat. Her tone stayed even, but her eyes shifted. Why would she? Maybe she borrowed it, I said, voice low. It's not in the closet anymore. She didn't reply right away, just set down the knife, wiped her hands, and walked to the bedroom. I followed, slow and quiet. She opened the closet. Sure enough, the coat was gone. I must have lent it to her and forgot, she said finally, not looking at me. I nodded. You give out a lot of gifts lately, huh? Her shoulders tensed. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I just turned, walked into the living room, and picked up the velvet box. I brought it back and handed it to her. Recognize this? Marin took it carefully, fingers trembling just slightly. She opened it, saw the empty interior, and froze. Then she met my eyes and smiled. I gave her a necklace. Something simple. She was having a hard week. I wanted to cheer her up. I waited, just long enough to let the silence bloom. What kind of hard week? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she closed the box, set it on the dresser, and began undressing for bed. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, counting the faint cracks in the plaster and wondering when exactly my life had veered into this new terrain of secrets and shadows. Something was going on, something quiet and careful, and I no longer believed I was imagining it. By Saturday morning, I had a plan. I told Marin I needed to drive out of town to meet a contractor about the garage renovation. She barely registered it, distracted by something on her phone. I left before sunrise, parked 2 blocks away, and walked back to the house, cutting through neighbors' yards and moving like a ghost. I slipped into the basement through the side entrance and waited. Just after 9 a.m., Lila arrived. Marin let her in. From my spot under the vents, I couldn't see anything, but I could hear. Their voices were low, hushed, close, then silence, and then footsteps. Upstairs, the bedroom. I moved fast, silent, slipped out of the basement and into the backyard, through the side door, up the stairs. I stopped outside the bedroom door. Laughter, whispered words, and then I heard it. A kiss. Not long, just a breath of contact, but unmistakable. I stepped back before I could make a sound, before I could burst in and ruin everything, before I could ruin them. Because now I was sure this wasn't just about a bracelet, or a coat, or a necklace in a velvet box. My wife was having an affair with the babysitter. The realization landed soft but sharp, like the slice of a razor across skin. No screams, no tears, just a clean break from the life I thought I had. Back in the garage, I paced for nearly an hour, trying to quiet the rising storm in my chest. Not because they were women. That wasn't the issue. Love, desire, it didn't follow rules. But because it had been built on lies. On weeks, maybe months, of deception right under my nose. And because it wasn't just betrayal. It was domestic. It was embedded. A rot within the house itself. I left again before they came downstairs. Later that night, I said nothing. And neither did Marin. We existed around each other like polite strangers. Sunday came, and brought something new. We were having brunch on the patio, sun dappling through the trees, Ellie chasing bubbles across the lawn. Marin was reading emails on her tablet, sipping orange juice. That's when the mail carrier walked up the driveway, holding a slim envelope. Handwritten. No stamp. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. A grainy image of Marin and Lila. In our bedroom. On our bed. Her hands in Lila's hair. Lila's lips on her neck. No note. Just the image. I folded it slowly, slid it back into the envelope, and looked across the table at Marin. She was still smiling at her screen. Still playing the role. But something in me had shifted. I would not confront her. Not yet. Not until I knew who sent the photo. Not until I understood the why behind it all. That night, while she slept, I returned to the bookshelf. To the empty velvet box. And underneath it, taped to the shelf, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A key. Small. Silver. Engraved with the number 304. And as I turned it over in my hand, heart pounding, a new possibility emerged. A room. A place. Something neither of them expected me to find. Room 304. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The number engraved into the key felt like a whisper in the back of my skull, persistent, soft, impossible to ignore. I rolled it between my fingers as I sat alone in the garage, the envelope and photo resting beside me on the workbench. A storm was coming. I could feel it in the pressure behind my eyes, in the way the leaves trembled even when there was no wind. The photo, the key, the silence. Someone new. Someone besides me. I didn't sleep. Again. By morning, I had convinced Marin I was headed out for a hardware run. I grabbed a travel mug, kissed Ellie on the head, and slid the key into my pocket. I didn't know what I expected to find. A hotel? A storage unit? A condo? I had no address, just a hunch. I drove for an hour, circling downtown, scanning building numbers, motel parking lots, office complexes. The key wasn't labeled beyond the number, but it didn't feel like a house key. The teeth were too shallow, too clean. Then I saw it. A modest brick building just off the main avenue, tucked between a dentist's office and a shuttered cafe. Sunridge Suites read the faded sign. The kind of place built in the 70s and never updated since. No website. No presence. Just numbered doors and a buzzing neon vacancy sign that flickered like a dying breath. Room 304 was at the end of the 3rd floor. I took the stairs slowly, counting each step. The hallway was silent except for the hum of an old vending machine. My palms were damp by the time I reached the door. The key slid in easily. Clicked. The door opened. and I walked into someone else's world. It was a small room, neat but lived in. Beige carpet, off-white walls, a queen-sized bed, unmade but not messy, 2 wine glasses on the nightstand, a used candle stub on the dresser, a bottle of perfume I recognized, Marin's, and on the wall, framed above the desk, hung a photograph. The 3 of us, me, Marin, and Ellie, from last year's trip to the lake. I stepped closer. My throat tightened. The photo was cut from our family frame, the same one that still sat on the mantel at home. But this one was different. In this version, my image was scratched out. Thin, deliberate knife marks marred only my face. Not Ellie's. Not Marin's. Just mine. I took a shaky breath and turned slowly. On the desk below the photo sat a journal. Lined pages. Black ink. I flipped through it. The handwriting was tight and slanted. Familiar, but not Marin's. It was Lila's. The entries started innocently enough. Observations about her days, the kids, our routines. Then they shifted. She looked at me differently today. Not like a boss. Like something more. He was home early. Had to pretend. But I think he suspects. The way she touches my hand when she laughs. I know she feels it too. One day, she'll leave him. We'll be free. And later, he's in the way. Always in the way. She doesn't say it, but I can tell. He suffocates her. He's so ordinary. I love her. She loves me. It's real. She's just scared. My skin went cold. This wasn't just an affair. It was a fantasy. No, a fixation. I kept flipping, faster now. Dozens of pages filled with stream of consciousness rants about our marriage. My habits. My faults. All exaggerated, distorted. She talked about our house like it was a cage. About Marin like she was a prize. And about me like I was disposable. If she doesn't do it, I will. I dropped the journal. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stepped back, needing air, needing distance from the smell of perfume, from the image of our ruined family photo, from the words carved in ink. I turned to leave, and that's when I noticed the camera, mounted in the corner of the room. A small, motion-activated device. Modern. High quality. It blinked at me. Recording. I hesitated, then crossed the room and yanked the SD card from the side slot. Whatever was on it, I needed to know. I left the journal. Left the photo. Left the room. Back in my car, I locked the doors, inserted the card into my laptop, and pulled up the footage. My hands trembled as the first video loaded. It was dated 2 weeks ago. The footage was angled toward the bed. Marin entered first. Then Lila. They kissed. Clothes fell. I closed the laptop before the rest played. Not out of shock. That part no longer surprised me, but because the next video loaded on its own. This one, from just 3 days ago. Marin wasn't in it. But Lila was. Alone. Talking to the camera. I know you're watching this, she said softly. She looked directly at the lens. Or you will be. When you find the key. When you open the room. My stomach twisted. I know everything feels strange right now. You think you understand. But you don't. She's not who you think she is. Neither am I. She paused, smiling. I didn't plan it. At first. But the more I watched you, both of you, the more I saw the cracks. Her smile faded. I'm just here to help her. Help her get free. She leaned closer to the lens. And if you try to stop that, you'll regret it. The video ended. I stared at the screen. The SD card slid from my hand and clattered to the console. That night, I didn't go home. I slept in the car, parked 3 blocks from the house, engine off, windows cracked. My dreams were fractured, memories of Ellie's laughter warped by Lila's voice echoing in the background. The room, the journal, the look in her eyes. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I returned to the motel. Room 304 was still unlocked. I went back for the journal. Only it wasn't there. Neither was the photo, or the wine glasses, or the perfume. The room was empty, clean, sterile, except for one thing. On the bed lay a new photo. A Polaroid. Me, asleep in my car. Taken just hours ago. On the back, written in looping script. Still watching. The air in the motel room felt thinner than before. I stood frozen, holding the Polaroid, the edges still warm. Taken that morning. I stared at my own image. Me, slumped in the driver's seat, mouth slightly open, vulnerable, unaware. The thought that someone had stood close enough to take it while I slept sent a cold current down my spine. I checked the windows. No cameras now. No signs of Lila. No trace of anything that had been here yesterday. It was as if someone had wiped the room clean, not just of belongings, but of presence. Only the faint smell of Marin's perfume lingered, soft and sickening. I left the room, pulled the door closed, and paused at the edge of the parking lot. There was a white van parked 3 spaces down. No logo. Tinted windows. Engine cold. It could have been anyone's. Could have been nothing. But I logged the plate number in my phone anyway. That afternoon, I sat in my office at work, the Polaroid in my drawer, the SD card in my jacket pocket, and my thoughts spiraling. I had decisions to make. I needed help. But who could I trust? Not Marin. Not Lila. Not even the cops. Not without dragging Ellie into a situation she couldn't begin to understand. I opened the clone backup of Marin's phone on my work laptop, something I hadn't checked in several days. I'd been too focused on the physical clues. But now I needed to dig deeper. There were still no overtly damning messages between her and Lila. Everything read like friendship, albeit unusually close. But tucked between shopping lists and forwarded memes, I found something strange. A photo sent from an unknown number. It was a close-up shot of Ellie. At school. On the swing set. Time-stamped from 3 days ago. Marin had responded with one word. Delete. That was it. No question. No panic. No surprise. Just a command. I stared at that single word until the letters blurred. My hands curled into fists on the desk. She knew. Not just about the photo. About everything. Back home, I was quiet during dinner. Ellie told us about her drawing, a lion spaceship. I smiled, nodding at the right moments, my gaze drifting to Marin's hands as she sliced potatoes. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't check it. Later, when she went to shower, I did. The message was from that same number. He found the photo. You need to handle this soon. No name. No context. But I knew what it meant. Handle me. When she came back into the room, wrapped in a towel, I watched her cross to the dresser, unhurried, elegant, the way she always moved when she thought she wasn't being watched. I saw her slide something from the drawer and into her bag, small, metal. The red coat was back in the closet now, hanging like it had never been gone. Marin, I said, voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, startled. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, just a flicker, I saw something. Not fear, not guilt, but calculation. I need to ask you something, I said. She nodded, waiting. I swallowed. Did you give Lila the key to that motel room? There was a pause. Then what motel? Her eyes didn't waver. She said it like someone reading a line she'd rehearsed. I stood, moved closer. Room 304, I said. Marin tilted her head, puzzled. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie, I said. My voice cracked. I've been there. I've seen everything. The pictures. The journal. Now a real flicker of something passed across her face. Not guilt. Fear. She turned away too quickly. I think you're overreacting. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the photo, and slapped it onto the dresser. She stopped mid-sentence. Who took that? I asked. Silence. She turned slowly. Where did you get that? You tell me. Her face paled. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. And then she did something that chilled me. She smiled. Not big. Not warm. A soft, knowing curl of her mouth. I told you not to go looking, she said. I stepped back. What? You could have left it alone, she whispered. You should have. I stared at her, my heartbeat thunderous in my ears. You and Lila, I said. You planned this. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Her voice dropped. I didn't plan anything. But she. Her sentence cut off. A knock sounded at the front door. We both turned toward the sound. Frozen. Another knock. Firmer this time. Ellie called from the living room. Daddy? Someone's at the door. I moved quickly, ushering her to her room. Stay here. Don't come out, okay? She nodded, wide-eyed. At the front door, I paused. Looked through the peephole. Empty. Nothing. No one. I opened it anyway. A small package sat on the porch. No label. No return address. I brought it inside. Marin stood rigid at the edge of the hallway, towel wrapped tight. I opened the box. Inside was another Polaroid. This time, it showed our bedroom. Empty. Except for a single shape. The velvet jewelry box. And written across the top of the photo in thick black ink. You missed something. Inside the box, buried under the packing paper, was a phone. Old. Burnt around the edges. But still charged. One video file. I pressed play. The screen showed a bedroom. Our bedroom. Marin. And Lila. But not kissing. Fighting. Lila had Marin's wrist in her hand, twisting it. Marin struggled, face contorted in fear, mouthing something. No audio. But I could tell. She was saying, "He doesn't know? Please." Then, frame by frame, Lila shoved her onto the bed, reached for the velvet box on the nightstand, and pulled out something small and glinting. Not jewelry. A SIM card. She held it to the camera, smiled, and mouthed, "This is the real secret." The video ended. The room was silent. Marin sat on the edge of the couch now, face pale, shaking. "Lila," she whispered. "She said she loved me, that she'd protect me, that I had to choose." I stared at her. "Choose what?" She looked up, eyes wet. "Between you and her." I didn't speak. I couldn't, because my phone buzzed. An unknown number. One message. Too slow. "It's already begun." I stood slowly, dread sinking like lead in my stomach. From down the hall came a sound. A window. Sliding open. Ellie's room. I ran, heart in my throat. The window was open. The curtain fluttered in the breeze. And the bed was empty. I screamed her name so loud I thought my lungs would rip apart. "Ellie." No answer. The window gaped open, mockingly still. The curtain billowed like a white flag left too late. I vaulted through it, barefoot, slamming hard into the soil below. My heel caught on the garden bed, pain flaring up my leg, but I kept moving. The yard was empty. No sign of a struggle. No footprints. No tire marks. But across the fence, the old one Ellie always said looked wiggly. I spotted it swaying, just slightly. Someone had climbed over. I tore through the side gate, circled to the driveway, and then I saw it. A single sheet of paper taped to our mailbox. I ripped it off. It was a printed photo, grainy, like from a phone screen, of Ellie strapped into the back seat of a car. Her eyes wide, mouth slightly open, still in her pajamas. Behind her, only darkness. At the bottom, typed in a thick, blocky font. "She comes back when you bring me what's mine." There was no signature. No instructions. Nothing. Back inside, Marin was frozen on the couch, still wrapped in her towel. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I grabbed her shoulders, shook her gently. "What does she want, Marin? What did you give her?" Her eyes met mine, dazed and empty. I didn't give her anything. I tried to stop. I told her it was over. What did she mean? What's hers? "I don't know," she whispered, voice cracking. "I don't know." I stepped back, turned. The house was too quiet. I scanned every surface, the dresser, the bookshelves, the drawers. Then I remembered the SIM card. The one in the video. The one Lila had pulled from the velvet box. I dumped the package contents again. Nothing. But something caught my eye. A crease in the bottom of the box lining. I tore it back. There, taped beneath the false bottom, was the SIM. Tiny. Black. Harmless looking. I popped it into an old phone we kept for emergencies and held my breath as it loaded. A folder appeared. Private. Inside were over 50 video files, all time-stamped over the last 6 months. The first one opened with static, then flickered to life. Our bedroom. From above. Lila and Marin. Together. Over and over. Dozens of times. But then, new footage. Of Ellie. In the bath. Changing clothes. Sleeping. Private moments. Vulnerable. Recorded. Without our knowledge. By Lila. I scrolled further. Videos of me. In my office. On the toilet. In the shower. This wasn't about love. Or obsession. Or jealousy. This was surveillance. Total. Meticulous. Planned. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, heart hammering. But before I could press call, it buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. Police equals dead kid. One chance. Come alone. Attached was a GPS pin. A park. Old. Abandoned. 20 minutes away. I stared at the screen, trembling. My instincts screamed to call the police anyway. But I saw her eyes again, Ellie's, in that photo. Wide. Afraid. I couldn't risk it. I sent Marin the video files, every last one. Back them up. Call the police if I'm not back in an hour, I said, tossing her the phone with the SIM. Tell them everything. Lila's been recording us for months. She blinked, stunned, but nodded. I drove like a madman. The park came into view, weeds cracking the asphalt, rusted swings creaking in the breeze. I parked and walked, slow, hands up. She's here. I called out. Come out. Silence. Then, over here. Lila stepped out from behind the slide. Ellie was next to her. eyes puffy, barefoot. Lila held her hand like they were crossing a street. I told you not to dig, Lila said calmly. I want her back, I said, stepping closer. You stole from me, she replied, smiling. The SIM, the videos. That was mine, she promised. She didn't know what you were, I growled. She knew enough. I kept my voice low. You hurt her, she scoffed. Never. I love her. You? You don't even see her. Not really. I took a step forward. She flinched. Ellie whimpered. I froze. Put her behind you, I said. Let her walk. Give me the SIM, she said. Now. I reached into my jacket pocket, slowly, and pulled out the phone. I tossed it to her feet. There, I said. It's all there. She didn't move, just stared at me. Then at Ellie. Run to Daddy, sweetheart, she whispered. Ellie hesitated, then bolted. I caught her mid-run, pulled her in, held her so tight I felt her ribs press into mine. She sobbed against my neck. When I looked up, Lila was gone, vanished into the trees. By the time the cops arrived, lights flashing, guns drawn, she was long gone. But they had the videos. They had her face, her voice, her madness. The arrest came a week later, out in another state, under a different name, applying for a nanny job. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just smiled. Maren and I told the truth. The full truth. The affair. The videos. The threats. In the end, no charges were filed against us. Just a restraining order and an endless string of therapy appointments for all three of us. The footage haunted me. I deleted it from my devices. But I know it's out there. Somewhere. I wake up some nights, convinced she's standing at the edge of the bed, watching us sleep. She's not. But still, I moved the family 3 states away. New house. New town. No babysitter. No secrets. Every time someone mentions bracelets or velvet boxes, I flinch. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never noticed it. If she'd never thanked Maren for a gift that was never supposed to be seen. But I did, and it saved my daughter's life.